You got to realize you train just for the Olympics. You trained 4 years for that moment. And that moment's not even a moment. It's 9 seconds.
This week on The Burn, we're taking you to Las Vegas Boot Camp, where Ben had a very transparent and eye-opening conversation with Olympic gold medalist Justin Gatlin. Justin shares the extreme ups and downs he faced, what it was like to race against the fastest humans on Earth, and how he discovered his alter ego, J-GAT. All that and more starting now.
Been waiting to do this for a long time.
We have, man. We have.
We've been talking about it. Now we get to do it.
Exactly.
I'm going to get right down to it. Here's where I want to start. Your foundation for success is pretty incredible. I know that foundation of success. I think sometimes people don't realize that they all have a foundation of success. So many accolades, so many medals, so much recognition. But if you could really start there, I think it'll help people understand who you are, how you were raised, the man that you are, that foundation of success. Take us there.
I learned at an early age that I can sit here and tell you as an athlete that it was a God-given talent, don't know where it came from. I'm just running fast, I practice hard, and I run as hard as I can when the gun goes off. If you do that, you're gonna lose every race. You're gonna lose every game, you're gonna lose every championship because you're not I always paid attention to the details in the discipline. I started at a young age that way because there was guys who were better than me. And I want to say, hey, how'd you become better than me? And I started looking at what their attributes were, what they brought to the table, what their flaws were. And I sat down and I made a system that was going to help me out, the FAST system. So the FAST stands for focus, accountability, structure, and timing. And I put all those things together, and that's what helped make me successful throughout my career. I didn't try to achieve goals. I tried to make a standard. And I tried to live to that standard. And when I got to a point where I felt I was hungry and full, I made another standard, and I lived to that standard. So through my career in college, I won 6 NCAA titles. I won 2 team NCAA titles within 2 years, all that within 2 years. Then I turned pro. And then from there, 2003, became indoor world champion. 2004, became Olympic champion. 2005, became double gold champion. 2006, became world record holder because I stuck to what my standard was, and I lived by what my system was.
How much of that system, foundation, and mindset came from a tough mom who grew up in the Bronx and a military dad?
It was a great combination. My mom would always make sure that she was poking me, make sure, hey, you got to get it done. My dad was always the quiet one. He would say, kind of like how you were saying earlier yesterday about your father, where I always wanted to make sure he was happy. And towards the end of my career, and I've never seen my dad cry ever until I became an adult and I've achieved all my accolades. And I have a picture of him that's on my wall in my house of him crying because in 2017, it was a mark of me winning a very pivotal race for me. And he said, you did it. You did it. All the things that you've accomplished, paying bills, having your own home, those are things that adults do. But you going through your whole career, your ups and your downs, and you stayed who you were, that was a sign of a man. And that's what made him happy. And I'm glad I was able to do that for him.
How powerful is that? We're going to talk a little bit more about that adversity, but before we get there, there's a conversation that you and I had. And I want to talk about this and then talk about what it's actually like. I'd love for everybody to understand the experience of being in front of 100,000 people, going crazy, sometimes booing, sometimes cheering.
More cheers than boos, though.
to do what you've done. But we had a conversation one time, and we were talking about finding the edge in the details that you and I have really talked a lot about. And everybody wants to advance so fast to get the result, to win the medal, but they don't want to do the work. And you shared with me that when you were really locked in on your training, just on your start alone, there would be periods of time. Everybody imagine this. Just on your start and your hands, you would spend 2 hours getting out of the block and on the exchange of your hands. 2 straight hours doing that one thing. Can you tell us why the attention to detail in every single area? Because here's what's fascinating. What people don't realize, some people, they'll go to work for 12 hours at a time, 8 hours at a time, they'll do all this. Justin's goal is to run like 9.7 seconds. Like, that's the experience. So if you imagine breaking down, as he explained to me, that 9.7 seconds, every single detail matters. So that hand exchange and coming out of the block 2 hours, tell us why every single detail mattered so much.
So I came back into the sport in about 2011, 2010, and I came back into a sport where there was like 5 or 6 guys who were top dogs, and they were running times that was comparable to mine or better. So you had Usain Bolt, Johan Blake, you had Tyson Gay, you had Asafa Powell, you had Nesta Carter. All of them ran 9.7 or better, right? 9.5s, 9.6s. And I remember reading an article, and the article was a dual interview with Asafa Powell and Tyson Gay, and they asked a question about me. And they said, do you think Justin Gatlin can ever be able to compete against you guys again? And they said, at the level that we're running at, no, we're not worried about Justin Gatlin. I took that article, I posted on my mirror in my bathroom. And I made sure every day I woke up, I read exactly what my opponents thought about me. Because that's what mattered to me. It matters, because at the end of the day, those details that I had to go through to get there, those 2 hours almost every day of practicing my hand movements, because I need to make sure that I evolved. They evolved. They got to a different point than I was. If I came back to a sport as Justin Gatlin from 2006, I wasn't going to get the job done. I was going to be just Justin Gatlin from 2006, and I was going to get 4th, 5th, 6th place, you know what I mean? I'm not built like that. I'm built to be a champion. I know what my standards are. So I had to humble myself, put my ego to the side and said, what's going to make sure I am at that top of that podium? And I had to work on my start. And so I asked my coach, let's stay back. Let's focus on my start getting into the race. Because he said, the way you're going to beat these guys is you had to become the fastest starter the world has ever seen. And that's what I did. I practiced 2 hours. And it was almost like Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi or Rocky. And I would go through the movements and the phases, and he'd be like, nope, do it again. Nope, do it again. Nope, do it again. And that was after already of practicing an intense practice of already 2 hours of just running around the track and doing gym. I came back to do all those kind of workouts because that detail mattered. And when I got out there on the track, I was able to lean back on that and rely into those details because I was so confident that I worked on them. And I made sure that those details were going to be there for me when it's time for me to execute my phases of my races.
So every single one of those details is what it takes to become a champion. Just like for everybody when we're challenging and attacking and asking them to look at the details. When you become a champion, because I want them to hear this experience before we actually go into something that you mentioned we could talk about that you haven't spent a lot of time or shared very often, which I think is a reflection of our relationship, and I appreciate your willingness to go there today. But before we go there, what is it like to win gold? Can you take us into the stadium and help us better understand what that feeling is like and the emotion and that experience?
All right, I'm going to take you to 2004 Athens, Greece. My first Olympics, and I was a young guy, maybe 20 years old. And I remember coming out, warming up for my race, and then we came through the tunnel, we came onto the track. And once we came onto the track, we were there already like 15 minutes before time. And that's usually unheard of. They run a tight ship when it comes to the Olympics. So you're out there, let's go. So I got onto that track. I had a teammate named Sean Crawford who I trained with that whole season. So we had blood, sweat, and tears together. And we knew that we always said to each other before we went out there, we gave each other a fist bump and said, hey, ain't nobody between us. If you get first, I'm getting second. If you get in 7th, I'm getting 8th. But there's no one going to come between us. We're going to win together or we're going to lose together. And that's the mentality that we went out to the track with. So I already was like energized to be there. And I was at the peak of what it is to be a track and field athlete, the Olympics. It's what you dreamed about. You know, little kids watching television and saying, that's what I want to be one day. And I'm standing there at that starting line now. 15 minutes before time, though. So you start doing your warm-ups, you start kind of popping out the blocks, and then you realize, okay, I'm warmed up, but now I still have another whole 10 minutes before I have to go out and really compete. And the stadium's full. Over 100,000 people inside the stadium. And the next thing you know, they start playing Greek music. And the stadium is just loving it. They're going crazy. So the energy started going from a moment that's only going to last for 9 seconds to it felt like you were getting ready to watch a heavyweight match. You about to see titans that were going to battle each other. Who was going to be the best in the world? That race was going to determine who was the fastest human alive. So me stepping onto that track, when we got down in the blocks, the whole place was quiet. You can hear a pin drop. You can feel the heat of the opponents next to you, lane 3 and lane 5. And you can just feel the heat coming off their shoulders because you're this close to each other. And all you hear is set. And then when you hear set, you knew after that gun goes off, history is going to be made. And I don't realize if anybody in the audience, if you ever been a part of history, you realize history is about to be made. Like when the first astronaut stepped on the moon, he knew before he stepped, this is about to be history. That's exactly what it felt like. When the gun goes off, the stadium is full of lights and flashes from photographs and cameras. You can hear cheers and roars. And the craziest thing is, to run that fast, you feel like you're in the Matrix. You feel like everything is moving slow. You feel like all your opponents around you are moving slow, but you're running like 27 to 30 miles per hour on your feet. I remember coming across 10 meters before the finish line, and at that point in time, I was just maybe a hair in front of the whole field. And I remember in my mind thinking, I'm about to win the Olympics, oh my God. And it was a little version of myself in my head jumping up and down, like, I'm about to win this. So I come across the line, I win it in 9:85. Second place was 9:86. Third place was 9:87. Fourth place was 9:88. So it was that close. So you can imagine what it felt like in a situation like that, winning by that slim of a margin, but fourth place losing at that slim of a margin as well. And that's what it makes up. You got to realize you train just for the Olympics. You trained 4 years for that moment. And that moment's not even a moment. It's 9 seconds, well under a minute. And that moment is going to define what happens to your career going forward. Are you a champion? Because if you're a champion now, you're on top of that podium, you get sponsors thrown at you, you get so much love coming from all different directions. But those people who don't make it to that top, it's almost back to the drawing board. And I had the most mature moment in that time before the gun went off. I looked up and I said, God, I worked so hard for this. I've never been in this situation before. But please, let me use every bit of fiber, every bit of faith that I have in this race. And if I don't win, I'm more than happy to go back to the drawing board. Gun went off, and the rest was history. It was amazing. Felt amazing. But you have to ask what I do with that medal after I got the medal. So once I went through the whole stadium and celebrated, did my victory lap, and once I got my medal around my neck and I had the wreath around my head, it was the most beautiful moment I've ever experienced. Be able to look up at that flag, national anthem's playing for you. And the people in the stadium who are Americans, they have a tear in their eye for you because all the hard work that you put in. I go back to that Olympic Village. I take that medal off of my neck. I look at it. I wrap the ribbon around it, and I tuck it in the side pocket of my carry-on bag. And I said, the work's not finished. I have 200 meters. I have a 4x1 to go back out there and do. I can't be distant. I can't go out there and say, my job is done, because I have some more to give. And that's what I did.
So let me ask you a question here. I remember, and I think this is important for people to hear, to understand. You talk about the seduction of success. There's the drive to just do it again and again and not settle. right? That never finished mindset. I remember being in the hotel the night after we win the national championship, and I remember texting the strength coach for Alabama.
A major part of reaching your peak performance is having the right people in your life or organization. And to help with that, we are proud to introduce our strategic partner, Spark Companies. No matter the industry or workforce needs, Spark Companies provide extremely effective solutions for leadership recruitment, staffing, and other workforce solutions. For our listeners, Spark is offering a no-cost consultative session to help identify your specific needs and how they might be able to help. To schedule your free consultation, head over to bennewman.net/spark. That's bennewman.net/SPARK. Now, let's get back into the show.
Championship, and I remember texting the strength coach for Alabama, and he's like, man, I can't wait for workouts to start. I'm like, man, I can't wait to get back to campus and attack this thing again. And a lot of people would read that and be like, man, there's something wrong with these guys. Like, they got some screws loose. Like, what is wrong with these guys? And you realize you almost expect to win when you prepare, but then you have this desire to keep doing it again. So I think a lot of people, I want you to go just a touch deeper for me on this, because a lot of people would say, how is that possible to take a gold medal that you've waited your whole life for and to tuck it in a bag to go back to work? What more can you tell us about that mindset of never finished and no seduction of success? And how do you get yourself to recommit back to the work and to focus on that next race?
I think it was natural for me, to be honest. I mean, once I looked at that medal and I saw that I still was hungry for more, because usually you just won the gold medal. You're the best in the world. Mission accomplished. You're done, right? I'm good. I can have a celebration. They can have a parade for me when I get home. But I didn't want none of that. I was obsessed with the process. I loved the process. It would be times where I had to make sure that I would trick myself to be even more excited for the process. I would fly to different meets, and I would make sure that I would never leave the room. I would get room service all the time. The only time I left the room was to prepare for my race. I would go to the track, I would warm up and do whatever I need to do with my coach, and I go directly back to the hotel, go into my room. I had to envision myself locked in a cell, a prison, right? Like a caged tiger. And the only time I can let myself out is when I'm ready and prepared for that race. So it made me antsy to even just get out the room again, just to go back to the track. I didn't want anything to distract me. I loved the process, and I loved the result that it gave me. And that's what I really wanted to keep doing over and over again. When you think about athletes who have ascended to a different level, you think about like Tom Brady's, you think about the Michael Jordan, you think about the Kobe Bryant's, and you hear them speak, they don't speak about, oh, when I got my fifth ring or when I got my sixth ring. It was always about the process. It was always about breaking down what mattered the most, which was getting better. How can I get better? That one ring, that proved that you were good. You were better than the whole field. But what about another ring? Is that going to make me a better athlete? Another ring. What is that going to make me? Another ring. What is that going to make me? So now you become in love with the process, and it's almost like an adrenaline rush. You want more. And even to the point when I retired, my body and my mind was like, I want more. I love this. I want to keep going. So the process is actually where the secret of success really is. You got to be able to love the process of what you're doing, and you can be able to take that into any walk of life. You know, you can't go from saying, I want to be the best track runner, and then all of a sudden now I'm going to jump forward and I'm going to be the Olympic champion, Super Bowl champion, NBA Finals champion. You have to have a process that gets you there. And if you're not in love with that process, you're not going to be a champion.
Let's go to a tough place. I think people can feel your passion for the process. I think people can feel your energy around what it took, all the hard work that goes into making that happen. You and I sat before we went to go meet Kennedy for the first time when you were breaking down exactly how you were going to push her and challenge her. And what I was fascinated with, you said, we're going to get into her mind. It's not just going to be the physical. And you brought all these contraptions, and it was amazing watching it all. But when we sat there at lunch and we talked about today, and you said, I'm willing to go to a place I don't really go to with you, Ben. And I want to have a real conversation with everybody, because as great as it is to become a champion, we're also met with adversity and challenge, and we go through dark periods in life. Walk us through that dark period.
So I let you all know exactly my accolades back to back, year to year to year to year, right? From 2003 all the way to 2006. In 2006, I tested positive. Now, in second grade, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was that kid and that was a year when Adderall, ADHD, Ritalin, all this kind of stuff was kind of like, I was the guinea pig generation. Like they didn't know exactly what to give us, so I even took Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. So they were just throwing stuff at us, right? I was that kid, and my teacher noticed that my attention was elsewhere. I'm not saying I had bad attention, but a bird flew by the window, and it was just whoop, 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 whoop. And all the kids in the class would look at the bird while we were taking a test, and then they looked back down. They registered bird. That's all they did, and they kept writing and doing their test. Not Justin. Justin kept looking at that bird and said, I wonder what kind of bird that is. I wonder where that bird lives. I wonder if that bird has babies. I'm thinking all these things, all at once. And that was the start of figuring out if I had ADHD. And from second grade on, I took medication. Like I said, it evolved from Zoloft to Ritalin to Adderall. And it was something for me that it shrunk me. And what I mean shrunk me, I wasn't proud because I felt like I had something that held me back, a weakness. So I hid it from the world. And once I went on to become a high school phenom and I went to college, I still was well off taking my Adderall. And then when you're in college, you're a student first, and then you're an athlete. So Adderall was never on their ban list. The first time I ran a USA track and field sanctioned race, that's where it showed up. Because the chemical makeup of the Adderall was the banned substance. It was never on the Adderall. The fact is, me and my parents, we always did our due diligence. I looked at myself as the good guy. I looked at myself as the guy that really wanted to be able to inspire the next generation, inspire the people around me. That's how I thrived. Never wanted to get the advantage over anybody, never wanted to cheat or be a bad guy, you know? So I remember when I got the letter in the mail, it was almost like I couldn't understand it. It was an envelope that was like this thick. And it was almost like reading Mandarin. I didn't understand what you meant. How did I test positive? It was minute traces of amphetamines in my system. And all I remember is laying my head down on my mom's lap and just crying like a baby. Because I know that wasn't me. And I wanted to figure out how I can be better. I wanted to figure out how we can solve this issue. And from that moment on, I had to wait for the B sample to come back. And the B sample obviously was going to be positive as well. Because I did. I fessed up. I took the medication. I had to. And I was served 4 years. Not 2 games where you see in the NBA or in the NFL. I served 4 years away from something I love to do. 4, almost half a decade. And I wasn't getting paid. I lost everything. I lost my contracts, lost a lot of friends. It was a very dark place for me in that time. I remember my mom was like, and I lived in North Carolina at the time, my mom was like, you know what? Come back home. I was like, Mom, I'm a grown man. I can't come back home. What does it look like me coming back home? I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I'm a world champion at that point in time. I'm a world record holder. I had to humble myself again. I came back home. I came back home to Pensacola, Florida, and which is known to be a military town, but also a beach town as well. And I met some friends. And those friends took me in. They didn't look at me as Justin Gatlin, looked at me as Justin. And I was able to mask my hurt and pain very well because I was always in front of televisions, reporters, and the news. But my outlet to be able to let that pain go was drinking, partying. I was partying and drinking like every day of the week. And the thing that really turned me around was there's a 3-mile bridge that connects the mainland of Pensacola to the beach, Pensacola Beach. And one night, it was probably like 2 o'clock in the morning, the clubs were shutting down, it was done. I had a lot of Jaeger bombs. Remember those days, right? And I was in my car, I had a Porsche Carrera. And I remember, I thought it was a brown paper bag, and I remember driving and I hit it, and it actually was a big rock, this big. Now, mind you, I'm from Pensacola. Everyone loves me from there. And a cop came over to my car and he was like, "Are you okay? Is your car okay?" And I know I reeked of alcohol. That's the only reason why you're on the beach at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're partying. He let me go. I remember driving across that bridge in almost pitch black, drunk, blurry vision. It scared me into changing my life. Because I know that if anything happened and this car went over into the water, no one would know where I was. They wouldn't even know I even was missing or where to find me at. And that changed everything for me. Because in that time, I was so hurt. I didn't care about my life. I don't think I was suicidal, but I didn't value my life enough to where I was like, be safe, be careful. And when I got on the other side of that bridge, I realized the damage I could do to myself would have been 10 times worse for my parents. My mother would have cried. My dad would have been depressed, even more depressed, because when we went through that whole situation, I had to go through trials and procedures, had to go through casts, I had to go through arbitration. My mom lost hair from depression and stress. My dad didn't speak much. It was a very dark place for us. So I realized no one's gonna come save me. I had to save myself. And that's what I did. No matter how deep I felt I was, every day I started working on becoming more disciplined again. Every day I weaned myself of partying. Hey guys, I can't go out and party with you anymore. Hey guys, I can't drink like that anymore. I was training, and I was training for nothing. I didn't have any races coming up. I still was kind of midway into my sentence. I was still 2 years deep. But I told myself, if you want to be disciplined, discipline is not going to turn on tomorrow. This band's not going to be lifted, and all of a sudden I'm going to run tomorrow and I'm going to be Justin Gatlin again. I had to prep myself. I had to give myself discipline again. I had to be able to drive and be hungry for it to be successful again. And that process took me about 3 years to even get back to what was a shell of Justin. And then I can work from there. But when I got back, I got on my knees and I thanked God. I asked God, I said, God, don't allow me to be on top of the world, off top. I'm not asking for that. All I'm asking for you to do is give me a great place to train, keep me healthy, and give me the tools that I need to be successful, and I can take care of the rest. And that's what he gave me. And that's what I worked with. I stuck true to what the plan was. I stuck true to what the promise was. He delivered for me, so I delivered for him. Mm-hmm.
We all go through periods of time in our life where we question, can we do it again? You get met with that challenge. You get met with the adversity. I think one of the amazing parts of your story is what happened after what you just shared. Because many people would have given up. Many people would have lost their faith. Many people would have gone back to racing just to get a contract or to try to make a little money because you didn't have that for so long. But you actually leaned in and became better than you had ever been at something that you had loved so much. You actually in 2015 recorded 6 9/7s. So explain to us like how unheard of it is to run 6 9/7s in 2015. But what I would also love for you to share about that is even though you were able to do something that was that significant, what you actually found about the difference of running mechanically versus learning to run with your heart again.
Absolutely. My return back into sport showed me the worth of success. You know, I think that when you're super talented and everything's going your way, you kind of take success for granted because that's all you know. I'm successful. If I just get out there and I'm ready to run, I make sure I don't pull a hamstring, I'm hydrated, my mind's focused, I'm going to win. The success rate is high. But when everything was taken away from me, and then I had to work to get all of it back, it put me in a situation where I realized that once I made that climb back up, I saw teammates who had it worse than me. I had one teammate who was homeless. He lived in his car. you know? It made me realize that I wasn't just doing it for myself anymore. I was doing it for people who really were truly rooting for me. And being away from the sport, it separated the people who really cared about me and wanted to see me be a better person and a better athlete, and the ones who were just on the bandwagon. So when I stepped back on that track, I did it for them. I did it for the people who really cared and really wanted to see me do well because I was doing it for them. But with that being said, it turned me into something different. It made me become hungry. It made me say, okay, I have to get out here and I can't waste not 1 second of training. I can't not waste losing one race, because now it meant something different to me. These other guys who had been in the sport and they were still running, they were running races and they would lose races and be like, you know what? I got another race in 3 days. I couldn't have that same mindset. Remember, I came back and I didn't get paid for 4 years. I didn't have an income for 4 years. And I was coming back into a sport where I was being blackballed. Now I served 4 years and now I'm blackballed. So I'm getting double punishment. Now I couldn't be in races where it was a diamond league and I could make better money, good money, income, right? I had to go race in these one-off races in the middle of nowhere in Europe where I was winning money that was less than my plane ticket that got me there, you know? But at the end of the day, I understood that there was a process that I needed to go through to get to where I wanted to be. And that was my process. I turned off the emotional aspect of things and I looked at it from a strategy. If I work my way up to get there, at some point, they're gonna have to let me in because results is what matters. Effort is what matters. And that's exactly what happened. There was one meat promoter that said, you know what? You're running very well. I'm gonna go against all the other meat promoters who have blackballed you. I'm gonna give you opportunity and shot. And from that moment on, he gave me that shot and I never looked back. So when I came back into the sport, 2015, when I ran those 9.7s, it was a fact that I wanted to make 9.7 feel normal because there's only like 10 people on this face of the planet who's ever ran 9.7 or better. So I ran 6 9.7s in one season, back to back to back to back. My coach had to say, slow down. Usually coaches are telling you, speed up. You're doing it wrong. Do this better. He had to tell me, slow down. I was like, I can't because I'm on a mission. I have to get this done. And by doing so, Usain Bolt has never ran that many 9.7s. Asafa Powell, no one in history has ever ran that many 9.7s. So I credit the fact that I wanted to come back stronger.
So you run all those 9.7s.
I ran all those 9.7s, and I was so enchanted by running those 9.7s that it got me to the World Championship of 2015. And this was going to be the big showdown between me and Usain Bolt. I beat Usain Bolt in 2013 in a one-off race in Rome. And from that point on, he never raced me again in a one-off race. The only time I've ever seen Usain Bolt after 2013 was at a finals in the World Championships. He was smart. His coach was smart. They realized that I'm the kind of person that if I challenge you and I'm competing against you, I'm going to figure you out very quickly. And if I have to race you again, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to exploit your weaknesses. That's a natural thing about me. So he never raced me. He only gave me the opportunity if I made the finals. That's the only opportunity I was going to have, and that's when he was at his best. That's when the world knew who Usain was. In the finals, he was Usain Bolt. I remember walking into the stadium in 2015 with coming off all those 9.7s, and something was missing. I gave so much into the preparation mechanically getting me to those 9.7s that emotionally I didn't go into that race. I didn't feel like the champion. I just felt like the fast guy. And when the gun went off, I'm usually having no one to contest me, especially halfway through the race. Here comes Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt beat me by 1/100th of a second to win that world title. It was probably the most painful defeat I've ever had in my life. because I knew I was ready. I ran 9.75 in the in the semis, like literally 45 minutes before the finals. He won with a 9.80. So if I just would have had that preparation I had in the semis and that mental focus I had in the semis, and if I would have brought it into the finals, it would have been a different story. So that point, after losing, I remember coming off the track and you had to do a lot of press conferences and you got to kind of walk this whole gauntlet and you had to talk to all these different reporters from USA Today, the BBC, everywhere, ABC. And I'm just going through this whole process and I'm just smiling the whole time like, yeah, you know, he was better than me that day, you know, yeah. Inside, I am dying inside because nothing hurts more than when you let your own self down. I beat myself out there. He didn't beat me. I beat myself out there. And once we got out of the press conference, I got into the service car to take me back to the hotel. And I remember just being on the phone. I was just crying to my mom and my dad. I was like, man, I can't believe that I let that happen. It's like scoring the winning touchdown or about to score the winning touchdown and the ball's thrown to you and you clear of all defenders and you drop the ball on national television. It put me in a depressed state going into 16. Even though I went to the Olympics, I won the Olympic trials, I went on to get a medal in the Olympics, it just didn't feel right. Didn't feel right until I got back into 2017, which was the next World Championships.
I want to frame something, and then there's something that happened when we were in St. Louis that unfolded in my eyes, which was, as I watched, it was just amazing. When you were just talking about attacking Usain Bolt, that was Usain Bolt's last race ever. So you talk about, like, Usain Bolt, people say, is the king of racing in history. And you took him down in his final race ever. When you were just talking about attacking every detail, being that champion, and then you made a choice to bring your heart back into your racing, and then you made a choice to not accept what those results were in 2015, and to go back to training and bringing your heart back into it. When I saw that in your eyes, I could feel your energy change. I don't know if anybody else was, I'm the closest one to your eyes. I don't know if everybody else could see that or feel that. When we were in St. Louis, you had Kennedy on, what do they call when you had her strapped in and then you let her go? What do they call that?
Ripcord.
The ripcord. So he's got this ripcord around Kennedy's waist and he tells Kennedy to take off. And then all of a sudden she takes off and he lets her go and bang, she's just gone. And I remember he looks back and he's like, bro, like, she has it. And he goes, she has something that you just can't teach. And you then proceeded to, and it was a really good thing because in our house, believe it or not, okay, I don't stand on the dining room table and give motivational speeches during dinner. And the kids don't come to me to like lock in mentally, they go to mama, okay? So it was awesome for me that you brought out in her, you said, Kennedy, you had something here. And you actually, it was amazing watching you train her physically. But when you started training her mentally, I was blown away. And you encouraged her to find her alter ego, to find that little extra edge, that nasty. You're like, Kennedy, when you did that, there was something like, what was that? And we talked about her finding Rosie. So she's Kennedy Rose. And it's like, Rosie, like, go to that place. You can control your mind like that. And then you started to tell her about your alter ego. Mm-hmm. And when you just looked at me with those eyes, I felt that alter ego. Yeah. When you see that race and you go down to the ground, first off, does anybody pay attention? I mean, one of the things about Justin Gatlin, this is one of the most humble, like, human beings. Like, when you hear him talk, when you hear what he went through, he's just a special human being. It's why I love our interactions. Most guys are running around the track. What did he do? He just beat Usain Bolt, and he went and bowed to him. Just how you go about things is amazing. But you went to, even though you respected him that much, to bow to that man, you said, not again. And you turned on J-GAT that day. And I think this is really interesting because Kennedy, and we're continuing to work on it, always, remind her of it from you helping her with it. But every single one of you can go to a place where you think differently. You may have to do that every single day until you get to December the 25th. Just like Justin had to do that, not getting the result he wanted in 2015. The crazy thing about racing, and I've been blessed to work with a handful of Olympians, the crazy thing about racing is you go these long periods of time where you don't get that next shot. Like World Championships, it's another 2 years, and then there's the Olympics and things in between. But you had to go to J-GAT every day. Can you tell us and help people understand the importance of containing your mindset and really understanding that alter ego, becoming that person who's willing to go into that hotel room, to mentally get yourself to believe I'm locked in this cage and when I come out, you're gonna watch me. Can you take us and help us understand the importance of J-GAT and how J-GAT is different than the Justin Gatlin that sits here right now?
I think J-GAT was always there. I just didn't recognize that he was there. Every time it was time for me to compete, I just felt a tingle in my body. I felt like energy in my body. I was excited to compete. I can't remember a time when I've ever been nervous competing. I think the only times I've ever been nervous probably was if I felt like I wasn't 100% prepared, which is a rare situation at all, But I learned throughout my ups and downs later in my career that J-GAT has always been there and J-GAT was needed because Justin, who I am today, Justin couldn't get that done. That's not Justin up there. Justin is the kind of guy that you've met in the last couple of days who's kind of just low key, soft tone. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all, J-GAT's a beast. J-GAT's a monster. J-GAT's that guy who's going to nudge Justin and say, nah, we ain't sleeping in today. We got to get that work done. This guy's out there trying to take your head. We got to fill them bags up that you have over there with heads. We got to get it done. And I think that if J-GAT was never around, I don't think I would be on the stage today. I had to live J-GAT. I couldn't turn J-GAT on and off, and I realized that. And J-GAT started bleeding into my real life. I became really aggy and snippy, and I would be really aggressive to people that was unnecessary. Then I realized, okay, J-GAT, you got to tone it back, man, all right? You got to just stay on the track. That's where you got to be at. But for everyone here, you got to find who you are. You got to find what your alter ego is. Because sometimes there's not going to be just somebody there to push you. Your boss not going to push you. Your coworkers are not going to push you. You have to push yourself. You have to be able to stay aligned and be accountable for your own standards and your own goals that you want to reach. And that's what I had to do. We have a situation where it's called a non-coachable moment. That's when your coach is coaching you all the way up to a certain point. You're going through practice every day. And then when you go into that warm-up area and they call you into that call room to go out onto that track, your coach is not there with you anymore. So who are you going to bring with you? I had to bring J-GAT. J-GAT was going to stick to the plan. J-GAT was going to make sure that he went out there, he executed, he'd make sure that everyone was gone. And that's what I had to do. That was my J-GAT. And that's what Kennedy needed. She has to realize that who her alter ego is, unleash it. Because when you sit on that bench and be like, man, I could have did this. Or when you cross that finish line, you lose and be like, man, I know I'm better than that person. I know I can do this. That's your alter ego talking. That's your standard that's talking. Your standard's telling you right now, you know you're better than that. Why did you do that? Why did you let those individuals beat you? You know that they're not better than you. Why did you falter? Why did you let yourself falter? So listen to your inner voice, listen to that alter ego talk to you, because that's what's going to drive you to what your success is. That's where your hunger is going to lie. And I thank God that J-GAT was around, because if he wasn't, I wouldn't be here, man. I wouldn't be with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being an example of what it means to live with a champion's mindset and to go through adversity and to let us know. Sometimes people can point fingers and try to tell you who you are, but you always have a choice to dig down deep, surround yourself with the people who love you, believe in you, and who know the real story and know who you are, and to keep fighting and attacking. Boot Camp family, this is one of the greatest champions to ever run the face of the earth. Give it up for Justin Gatlin.